On her wedding day, my fiancé, Marcus, appeared with my pregnant sister, Anna. My brother just passed away not long ago. I promised him I would take good care of his wife and child. So, I will marry her, he continued. If you refuse, then leave our wedding, Anna's and mine. If you agree, then this will be a wedding for the three of us. I stood frozen, my high heels pinning me to the spot like nails. The train of my wedding dress spread out like a shattered flower. So, Marcus's voice echoed through St. Augustine's chapel. What's your choice, Lily? I looked at his hand resting protectively on Anna's waist, at Anna's slightly swollen belly, at the guest's eyes filled with either pity or morbid curiosity. I agree. My voice was clear and calm, surprising everyone. A flicker of surprise crossed Marcus's eyes, followed by relief. But I took a step forward, my wedding dress rustling softly. A wedding for three requires vows from three. I walked to the officiant, taking the blank vow card and pen from his hand. Since this is a special wedding, the vows should be a little special too. I quickly wrote a few lines, then handed it to the officiant. Please read this. The officiant hesitated, looking at Marcus. Let her. Marcus shrugged. A victor's stance. The officiant cleared his throat. Groom, do you take Lily to be your wife? To live with her according to biblical teachings. To be united with her before God, and during the duration of your marriage. To immediately transfer 50% of the assets under your personal name to Lily's name, as a guarantee of your fidelity to this marriage? A murmur of shock swept through the chapel. Marcus's face changed. What do you mean? He asked, his voice low. It means, I met his gaze. Since you want me to play the role of wife in this farce, you have to pay me for it. Anna clutched Marcus's arm. This is absurd. I smiled. More absurd than you announcing you're marrying my pregnant sister-in-law at my wedding? Marcus stared at me, his eyes complex. I could tell he was calculating his family business shares, his properties, his yacht. Or I'll walk out right now, I said softly, and let everyone see that your deeply moving commitment isn't worth a single dime of financial security. Guests whispered. I heard words like greedy and taking advantage of the situation. But also you go, girl, and they deserve it. Marcus gritted his teeth. Fine. I agree. Words aren't enough. I pulled out a document I had prepared long ago from my clutch, originally a postnuptial agreement. I quickly wrote an additional clause in the blank space. Sign it. Marcus looked at me in disbelief. You prepared this already? Always better to be prepared. I smiled. I just didn't expect to use it here. He signed it with a grim face, under the watchful eyes of everyone. The ceremony continued. When the officiant announced, the groom may kiss the bride, I stepped forward quickly, not to kiss Marcus, but to lean in close to his ear. Congratulations, husband, I whispered. Now you have two wives, and two women who can destroy you at any moment. I stepped back, looking at his and Anna's astonished and uncertain expressions, and held up the newly signed agreement. Thank you all for witnessing. I turned to the guests, raising the document in my hand. This is truly the most profitable wedding of my life. Sparse applause began, then grew louder. I turned in the applause, leading the way out of St. Augustine's chapel, my wedding dress trailing behind me like a battle flag. Marcus chased me, grabbing my arm at the chapel door. What exactly do you want, Lily? The sunlight was dazzling, and I squinted at him. This man I had loved for 5 years, who, less than 3 months after my brother Tom, his best friend, passed away, got involved with my sister-in-law, and then gave me such a surprise at our wedding. Survival. Marcus. I shook off his hand. Since you chose to destroy my life, I'll extract the maximum value from it. He sneered. You think taking the money means you've won? No. I pulled open the car door and looked back at him. This is just the first round. You made me the laughingstock of the entire city, Marcus. Let's see who gets the last laugh. I returned to the apartment Marcus and I had originally prepared for our married life. Everything was exactly as I had left it that wedding morning. Scattered hair products, a spare wedding dress hanging on the bed, a simple satin gown, originally meant for the dance after the reception. Now it hung there like a pale ghost, mocking me. I ripped it down, wadded it up, and shoved it into the deepest part of the closet. Then I started taking down my hair and removing my makeup. Hot water streamed over my face. I couldn't tell if it was water or tears. The woman in the mirror had swollen red eyes, but her gaze was dry, like a scorched wasteland. Outside the door, I heard the sound of a key turning. Marcus was here. I walked out wrapped in my bathrobe. He stood in the living room, his suit jacket draped over his arm, his tie loosened, looking tired and irritated. "You can't live here." He cut straight to the point. My motion of drying my hair paused. "This is our matrimonial home." "Not anymore." He avoided my gaze. "Anna needs quiet. This apartment is close to her obstetrician and has a good environment. You'll move out." I almost laughed. "So, after my wedding was ruined, I'm also being driven out of my own home? This isn't your home." He suddenly raised his voice. "I paid the down payment for this apartment, and I'm paying the mortgage. Lily, face reality. You've already gotten enough today." So, in his eyes, that 50% of the assets was charity, the price to make me shut up. And now, he wanted to reclaim even this space. "Anna's idea?" I asked, surprised by my own calm voice. "We need to prepare for the baby," he said stiffly. "I've rented a small apartment for you downtown. It's quite nice. You'll move in tomorrow." He slapped a piece of paper with an address on the coffee table. I looked at that flimsy paper, feeling my heart clench in an icy grip. This wasn't a discussion. It was an eviction. What if I don't? Marcus took a deep breath, his last shred of patience gone. "Then I'll stop all your cards and freeze the transfer promised in that agreement." "Lily, don't push me. What you have now is what I'm willing to give you. If I'm not willing, you are nothing." He turned to leave. "Marcus." I called out to him. He stopped at the doorway, not turning back. "Do you remember the first time you brought me to see this apartment?" I said softly. "You said it had good sunlight, perfect for my painting. You said we'd grow many flowers on the balcony and build block towers for our children in the living room." His back stiffened for a moment. Then, he pulled open the door, his voice devoid of any warmth. "Forget those things, Lily. It's all in the past." The door slammed shut. A vast silence enveloped me. I slowly slid to the floor, my bathrobe falling open, cold seeping from the tiles into my limbs. I looked around this home I had decorated little by little, every corner filled with plans and dreams. Now they were all a mockery. I crawled to the tall cabinet in the living room corner. On the top shelf was a photo frame. The photo showed 3 young people, my brother Tom, with Anna, who was then his girlfriend. Next to them was Marcus, smiling brightly, and I, standing on Tom's other side, making a funny face at the camera. Those were good times. Tom was still alive. Anna looked gentle and shy, and Marcus's eyes were only for me. My brother, Tom, who always patted my head and said, "Brother's here. No one dares bully my Lily," died in an accidental car crash, leaving a huge void and our family's company on the brink of bankruptcy. It was Marcus who stepped up, as Tom's best friend, stabilizing the company, and taking care of Anna. I held the photo frame, and tears finally streamed down onto the glass. "Brother." I pressed my forehead against the cold photograph, weeping silently. "What should I do? How could they do this to you?" To me, no one answered, only his eternal smile in the photo. I cried for an unknown amount of time until my tears ran dry. I looked up at Anna nestled in Tom's arms in the picture, and Marcus's hand on Tom's shoulder. A thought suddenly flashed through my mind. Less than 3 months after Tom's death, Anna discovered she was pregnant, and Marcus was so eager to take responsibility at my wedding. The timing, it was too coincidental. Marcus's words still echoed in my ears, "You are nothing." The floor was cold, but the flicker of anger, previously crushed by humiliation and sorrow, was rekindled by that phrase. Yes, I seemed to have nothing now. Betrayed by my fiancé and sister-in-law, kicked out of my home, a complete failure. But they forgot that a person with nothing has nothing left to lose. I wiped my tears, carefully cleaned the photo frame, and put it back. Then I stood up and walked to the coffee table, picking up the paper with my new address. I took out my phone, snapped a picture of the paper, then opened a secure photo album and saved the photo. In the album, there were already photos of Marcus and Anna standing together at the wedding today, a photo of the signed property agreement, and a recording of part of the conversation when Marcus demanded I move out. The damage was done. I couldn't stop it, but I could document it. Every humiliation, every coercion, every injustice. I went into the bedroom and calmly began packing my bags. I no longer cried, and my fingers no longer trembled. In the small apartment, I had just hung up the last piece of clothing. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Anna standing outside, wearing a loose silk dress that perfectly concealed her slightly protruding belly, a paper bag in her hand. Her face held a subtle expression, somewhere between sympathy and superiority. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Lily. Her voice was soft, laced with deliberate concern. I came to see you. Are you all right? I didn't let her in, simply blocking the doorway. Thanks to you, I'm alive. The smile on her face stiffened, then spread again, her gaze sweeping past my shoulder to the cramped living room behind me. This place, it's quite cozy, much smaller than the apartment Marcus and I live in now, but it's enough for one person. The words were like a fine needle, piercing the most painful spot in my heart. That large apartment was one Marcus and I had chosen together. Is there something you need? I asked, unwilling to beat around the bush. I brought you some things. She handed me the paper bag. Marcus asked me to send over some of your old belongings from there. He said you'd be sad to see them, but it's better to get rid of them, since we're starting a new life and need to make space at home. I took the paper bag. Inside were some of my miscellaneous items, an old photo album of Marcus and me, a few pieces of jewelry he'd given me that I rarely wore anymore, and my fingers brushed against a cold metal frame. It was the last photo of my brother Tom and me, which I kept on my nightstand. They couldn't even tolerate this. I felt my throat tighten, but my face showed no emotion. How thoughtful of him. Anna looked at me, seemingly disappointed by my composure. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Lily, I know you hate me, but and I are truly in love. When left, I was so distraught, and Marcus was always there for me, comforting me. We didn't expect this either, but the baby came. It's fate. Is fate sending me your grand gift on my wedding day? I looked at her, asking each word distinctly. The facade of apology on her face immediately vanished, replaced by a trace of coldness. What good will holding on do? Now I am one of Marcus's legal wives, and I'm carrying his child. You're just a pathetic loser with some money, living in a small apartment. Be smart. Leave willingly. It's better for everyone. Legally, I am still Mrs. Vance. I reminded her, and myself. Your child, legally, will even have to call me mother. Anna's face finally changed, cracks appearing in her carefully maintained composure. You, anything else? Anna, sister-in-law? I deliberately emphasized the last two words. She glared at me fiercely, her hand unconsciously protecting her belly, as if I would harm her precious child. You'll regret this, Lily. Marcus's heart isn't with you at all. Holding on to an empty title will only make it more humiliating for you. She turned, her high heels clicking on the hallway floor, a sharp, angry echo. I closed the door, leaned against the cold door, and slowly slid to the floor. The paper bag lay scattered at my feet, the photo album open, revealing Marcus's and my laughing faces in the sunlight. The glass frame of the photo with my brother felt sharp at the edges. Anna's words coiled in my mind like venomous snakes. Pathetic loser. Empty title. More humiliating. They were pressing me, step by step, taking my wedding, my home, and now trying to strip away even my memories, then stepping on them, forcing me to give up willingly. Why? I picked up the photo with my brother, carefully wiping away non-existent dust with my sleeve. My brother's eyes were warm and firm, as if silently giving me strength. I couldn't fall, at least, not as they wished. Anna's visit today, more than an insult, exposed her insecurity. Her eagerness for me to back down only confirmed that my identity as Mrs. Vance was still a thorn in her side. That child. The timing was too coincidental. Anna mentioned Tom's death was so painful, leading to mutual comfort with Marcus. What if it wasn't like that? I picked up my phone, looking at the newly added recording of parts of Anna's conversation in my secure photo album, especially the lines where she mentioned the baby as fate and Tom's death was so painful. A few days later, I, as the daughter-in-law, received a formal invitation to Evelyn's 70th birthday gala. I couldn't refuse. I chose a simple black knee-length dress and wore the pearl earrings Marcus had given me years ago, not high in value, but respectable enough, and enough to remind certain people of a past existence. I didn't deliberately dress up, but my pallor and thinness gave me a quiet elegance. The gala was held in Marcus's spacious garden. When I arrived, it was already filled with guests. Marcus and Anna were undoubtedly the center of attention. Anna wore a soft champagne-colored maternity dress, and Marcus attentively supported her, accepting everyone's blessings. My appearance was like a pebble thrown into a seemingly calm lake. Whispers immediately spread. Evelyn saw me, her expression complex, but she eventually nodded. Anna immediately clasped Marcus's arm, wearing an impeccable yet cold smile. I found a corner seat, trying to keep a low profile. But someone didn't want me to have my way. Anna, holding a glass of juice, surrounded by several ladies, walked seemingly casually near me. Lily, you came, she said, her voice not loud, but clear enough for those around to hear. I was worried you wouldn't. After all, everything here might remind you of unhappy things. The eyes of the ladies fell on me, filled with scrutiny and pity. I picked up my water glass, took a sip, then looked at her. Of course not. This is Mom's home. I'm happy to be here to celebrate Mom's birthday. I deliberately used the affectionate address. Anna's smile faded slightly. It's good that you think so. Marcus and I were worried you'd be living alone in that small apartment and become depressed. What small apartment? I asked calmly. Are you referring to the downtown apartment Marcus personally chose for me? Though small, it's very convenient. Thank you for your concern. Anna was momentarily choked. She clearly hadn't expected me to openly mention the fact of my eviction, and to do so with such nonchalance. Just then, Marcus also walked over, standing beside Anna, forming a silent alliance. He looked at me, his brows slightly furrowed. Lily, this is an important occasion today. What about me? I interrupted him, my voice still steady. I'm sitting here quietly, celebrating Mom's birthday. Is there a problem? Marcus was stumped by my question, his face darkening. Anna immediately interjected, her tone laced with a hint of grievance and kind reminder. Lily, we just hope you can look forward. After all, Marcus, the baby, and I are a family now. It's not good for you to always cling to the past. The surroundings quieted, and more eyes turned our way. I put down my water glass, looked at them, and suddenly smiled. A family? Anna, have you forgotten that? Legally, I am still Marcus's lawfully wedded wife? Our marriage certificate has the same legal effect as yours. Or do you think that property agreement I signed was enough to buy out my status as wife? Marcus's face instantly changed. Lily, watch your words. What's wrong with my words? I stood up, although I was shorter than Anna, who was wearing high heels. My back was straight. I'm just stating facts. Or do you dare to do it, but not let others talk about it? I took out my phone from my clutch and gently placed it on the table, screen down. Do I need to remind everyone present that at our wedding for 3? Marcus, you personally promised and signed an agreement to transfer 50% of the assets under your name as a guarantee of fidelity to our marriage? Or do I need to play a recording to let everyone hear how you demanded I face reality and move out of my own home? I didn't actually play the recording, but the threat was enough. Marcus's face flushed and paled. He stared at me intently, his eyes filled with shock and fury. He probably never imagined that Lily, who used to blush and flirt in front of him, would become so sharp. Anna's lips trembled with anger, and her hand tightened around her belly. You're shameless. You want to threaten us with money? Threaten? I tilted my head slightly, looking at her. I'm just protecting my legitimate rights that you yourselves handed to me. Anna, don't forget, in this family, you are the newcomer. And what's more, you joined before my brother was barely cold in his grave. I lowered my voice on that last sentence, but it was like a poisoned dagger, striking straight at her. Anna's face instantly turned ashen, and her body swayed. Marcus quickly steadied her. Lily, that's enough, Marcus growled, a vein throbbing on his forehead. The entire room fell silent. All the guests looked at us. Their expressions varied: shock, curiosity, and even a hint of excitement. I sat back down, picked up my water glass, and no longer looked at them. Happy birthday, Mom. I'm going to get some food. I stood up, walked calmly through the silent crowd, and headed towards the buffet table. I could feel Marcus's angry gaze and Anna's resentful glare fixed on my back. The brief confrontation at the birthday gala was like throwing a boulder into a calm lake. I knew the ripples would spread, but I didn't expect them to surge back so fiercely. 2 nights later, my phone exploded like a death knell. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. As soon as I answered, his furious roar almost pierced my eardrums. Lily, are you satisfied now? Anna's in the hospital. The doctor says her emotions were too unstable, and there's a risk of miscarriage. My heart sank, but I desperately kept my voice calm. What does that have to do with me? What does that have to do with you? Marcus's voice was distorted with rage. If it weren't for those vicious words you said at the birthday gala, how would she be like this? Lily, I'm telling you, if anything happens to Anna and the baby, I will never let you off. The phone was slammed down. I stood holding my phone on the cold tiles of the apartment, the city neon outside the window blurring. Fear spread through my limbs like ice water. If child was really gone, even if it had nothing to do with me, that dirty water would completely drown me. Marcus's fury, public opinion, would be enough to burn me to ashes. I barely slept that night. The next morning, more gifts arrived in quick succession. First, all my bank accounts were frozen. My phone continuously received SMS notifications from the bank, alerting me to unusual account activity and restricted transactions. Immediately afterward, Marcus's lawyer called, coldly informing me that Mr. Vance had formally filed a lawsuit with the court, asserting that the property agreement signed under duress and an abnormal marital state was invalid, and demanding a swift dissolution of my marriage. The stated reasons were my mental instability, malicious intent towards Ms. Anna and her fetus, and public dissemination of false statements, causing immense emotional and reputational damage to Mr. Vance and his family. How efficient. I sat on the sofa, looking out at the gray sky, my economic lifeline cut off, a legal battle initiated, plus a sister-in-law who might miscarry because of me. Marcus's retaliation was ruthless, giving me almost no breathing room. In the afternoon, I forced myself to go out to the nearby supermarket to buy the cheapest food. On my way home, a familiar black car pulled up below my apartment building. Marcus got out of the car, dressed in a tailored suit, his face as grim as the sky before a storm. "We need to talk." He blocked my path, his eyes devoid of any warmth. "Is there still a need for us to talk?" I clutched my cheap grocery bag, my fingers tightening. "Yes." He took a step closer, his tall figure casting a strong shadow over me. "Withdraw your claim on the property agreement, and agree to an unconditional divorce. I can give you a reasonable compensation, enough for you to live comfortably for a while. Otherwise what?" I looked up at him, refusing to back down. "Otherwise, not only will you not get a penny, but I'll also ruin your reputation." He lowered his voice, each word sharp as a knife. "I'll make everyone know what a malicious, mentally unstable woman you are. How you clung to me after my brother's death, and how you envied and harmed a pregnant Anna. Just wait and see. Who will believe you then? Will you still be able to live in this city?" I looked at the undisguised ruthlessness in his eyes, my heart gripped by an invisible hand, a feeling of suffocation washing over me. He knew my weakness. I had lost Tom, lost my home. If even my last shred of reputation and place in the city were taken away, I would truly have nothing. "The child," I managed to ask. "Anna, is she really okay?" Marcus's eyes flickered for a moment, then became even colder. "She needs rest now. This is all thanks to you, Lily. Sign the agreement, take the money, and leave. This is your last chance." He threw a new document into my hand, then turned and got back into his car, speeding away. I stood there, my fingers cold. The document in my hand felt weightless, yet heavy as 1,000 pounds. Back in the small apartment, I locked the door and slid down. Leaning against it, the grocery bag lay scattered on the floor, spilling out a few discounted potatoes and carrots. Despair flooded over me like a tide. Marcus's counterattack was so swift and fierce, cutting off all my escape routes. Law, money, public opinion, he held all the advantages. I curled up, burying my face in my knees. Should I really give up? Take his charity, leave far away, and simply survive? No. The thought barely surfaced before it was crushed by a stronger force. If I gave up now, all the accusations would become true. Tom's spirit would not rest. All the humiliation and harm I had endured would become meaningless. Anna's spotting was too timely, too much like precise retaliation for my birthday gala counterattack. And that momentary flicker in Marcus's eyes. I suddenly looked up. "Don't panic. Especially now." I needed to be calm. They wanted to break me with fear and pressure, to make me give up the fight myself. I wouldn't. I found the new agreement Marcus had shoved into my hand. I didn't sign it, but instead carefully photographed it for safekeeping. Just when I thought Anna's miscarriage risk drama would escalate, I learned from Evelyn that Anna had merely experienced false labor and was discharged as stable after 2 days of observation. When the news reached me, I could almost imagine Marcus and Anna mocking my foolishness and gullibility behind my back. But the consequences of this brief storm were real. Marcus seemed even more self-righteous because of my malice, and his retaliation was no longer limited to economic and legal aspects. I started receiving silent calls. Late at night, the doorbell would ring, but when I opened the door, no one was there. Once, when I came home, I found the doorknob smeared with disgusting, blood-like paint. An invisible, personal campaign of harassment and intimidation had begun, making my nerves tense and robbing me of sleep. Even worse, the illustration studio where I had a part-time job subtly informed me that they wouldn't need my work for the time being. I knew who was pulling the strings behind the scenes. The tiny space I relied on to survive in this city was being slowly stripped away. Despair again washed over me like a cold tide, threatening to drown me. I curled up on the cold floor of the apartment, feeling like an insect trapped in a transparent jar, able to see outside but with nowhere to escape. My gaze idly swept across the corner of the room to an old suitcase belonging to my brother Tom, which I had brought from our old apartment. It was the suitcase he always used for business trips. After the accident, it had been stored in the storage room, and when I moved out, I had impulsively taken it with me, as if carrying a piece of my brother's memory. I crawled over and opened it. Inside were a few of Tom's old clothes, emitting a faint, familiar scent of his. I buried my face in them, drawing a little illusory warmth and strength. Beneath the clothes were scattered stationery items, an old passport holder, and a few business journals he often read. I aimlessly sifted through the items until my fingers touched an unusually hard lump in the passport holder. It wasn't the thickness of a passport. I opened the passport holder, and inside, besides an expired passport, was a thin, black metallic USB drive, cleverly wedged into an inner seam, impossible to find without careful searching. My heart pounded. I had organized all of Tom's belongings. I had never seen this USB drive. Why would he hide it so well? I almost trembled as I inserted the USB drive into my computer. It contained only one encrypted folder. I tried Tom's birthday, my birthday, and a few of his common passwords. All failed, just when I was about to give up. I remembered a time when Tom, drunk, had put his arm around my shoulder and said, "Lily, if I'm ever not around, remember to check the tree where we carved our initials when we were kids. That's our treasure trove." That tree, the old oak tree in our backyard, where we carved our initials and the date when we were children. I tried using that date as the password. The folder opened. Inside were several scanned documents and a short audio file. I clicked on the documents, and my breathing stopped. They were screenshots of financial transaction records. The recipient was an offshore shell company, and in the payment remarks, I could vaguely see project names related to Marcus's current business operations, with huge sums of money. The timing was just 1 month before Tom's death. I clicked on the audio. The background was noisy. It seemed to be a phone recording. First, Tom's voice, strained with anger. "Marcus, I considered you a brother. Tell me, what's going on with this account? That offshore shell company." Then's voice, devoid of its usual warmth, carrying an icy annoyance. "Tom, calm down. This is just normal business operations. A temporary workaround. I'll make it up." "Make it up? This is embezzlement. You're driving the company we built together into the ground. Enough." Marcus's voice suddenly rose, with a hint of ruthlessness. "Tom, don't burn all bridges. Think about Anna. Think about Lily. Do you really want to make things ugly for everyone?" The recording stopped there. I sat in front of the computer, cold all over, my blood seemingly frozen. My brother. He had discovered Marcus's problem long ago. He was even secretly investigating and left behind evidence. He mentioned Anna. He mentioned me. Marcus was threatening him with us? Then, Tom's car accident. A terrible thought, one I dared not fully contemplate, slithered into my mind like a venomous snake. It turned out that everything I had experienced was not merely betrayal and humiliation. Its roots might be far darker and bloodier than I had imagined. Marcus and Anna. They didn't just take away my fiancé and my wedding. They might be connected to my brother's death. Fear and immense anger seized me simultaneously. The previous grievances, unwillingness, and struggles were, in this moment, replaced by a deeper, colder hatred. I looked at the small USB drive. It was cold, yet it seemed to carry my brother's last warmth and silent entrustment. I didn't immediately take the evidence to confront them. That would be foolish. Marcus could fabricate excuses, or even resort to desperate measures. I needed a more complete chain of evidence, and an opportunity that would make it impossible for him to recover. I contacted a private investigator, providing him with the financial leads from the USB drive and instructing him to focus on investigating the offshore company and all of Marcus's and Anna's movements and communication records around the time of Tom's car accident. At the same time, I copied the USB drive and sent the copy, along with an explanatory letter, to an old classmate of Tom's who worked in the financial unit and whom I absolutely trusted. I didn't ask him to act immediately, merely to serve as a safeguard. Then, I began a period of patient waiting and pretense. I proactively contacted Marcus's lawyer, stating that I was considering signing the divorce agreement that relinquished property, but needed time to compose myself and consult my lawyer. I acted hesitant, fragile, and even, during a threatening phone call from Marcus, gave in with a choked voice, implying I might soon surrender. I wanted them to believe that I had been pushed to the brink and was about to give up. During this time, Anna visited me once, haughtily, under the guise of concern, but really to gloat. She stroked her slightly protruding belly, talking about how worried Marcus was about her and the baby, and how relieved he was that we would finally be completely done. I kept my head down, playing the role of a loser, my nails digging deeply into my palms, using the pain to remind myself to remain silent. My compliance evidently pleased her. The time was ripe. A month later, a private investigator delivered decisive news. He had found records showing Marcus, a week before Tom's accident, had transferred a large sum of money through several intermediary accounts to an offshore account. Registered under the recipient's name was an unlicensed vehicle that had been spotted near the stretch of road where Tom's accident occurred, and the timings matched. At the same time, the investigator discovered that Anna had secretly visited Riverbend Women's Clinic, located far from the city center, multiple times before Tom's death. Her official gestational age was at least 4 weeks less than what she publicly claimed. This meant the child was likely conceived before Tom's passing, and the father was most likely Marcus. Just then, Evelyn held another family gathering to celebrate Anna safely past the critical period. I received an invitation, and this time, I didn't refuse. I put on my plainest black dress, pinned a mini voice recorder to the lining, and walked into what used to be my home, carrying one last gift, the draft divorce agreement I was prepared to sign. The party was in full swing. Anna snuggled up to Marcus, basking in the congratulations. Seeing me, a flash of triumph crossed her eyes, while Marcus's coldness was undisguised. In front of everyone, Evelyn formally greeted me with a few words. I quietly sat in a corner until the party neared its end. Marcus, seemingly feeling the time was right, approached me with a wineglass, in a condescending manner. "Lily, it seems you've come to your senses. Did you bring the agreement?" His voice was low, but loud enough for the nearby relatives to hear. I looked up at him, no longer concealing the icy coldness in my eyes. "I brought it. But before I sign, I have a few guests who'd like to say hello to you and Anna first." I took out my cell phone, dialed a number, and put the call on speakerphone. Marcus frowned. "What are you playing at?" The call connected, and I spoke into the phone. "Officer, detective, you can come in now." The living room door swung open. My former classmate, a financial crimes detective, walked in with 2 uniformed colleagues and the private investigator who worked for me. A sudden hush fell over the entire room, and all eyes focused on us. Marcus's face instantly drained of color. "Lily, what is the meaning of this?" "The meaning is simple." I stood up, walked to the center of the living room, my voice clear and steady. "I've filed a report with the police. I'm accusing you, Marcus, of large-scale corporate embezzlement, and of being involved in my brother Tom's death." A wave of commotion ensued. "You're talking nonsense," Anna shrieked, pale with shock. "Nonsense?" I looked at her, my gaze like a knife. "Anna, do I need to remind you of your prenatal checkup records from Riverbend Women's Clinic? Your gestational age is a full 4 weeks less than what you told everyone." "What does that mean?" "It means you were already pregnant with Marcus's child while my brother was still alive." Anna collapsed onto the sofa, drained of all strength. Marcus tried to rush forward but was stopped by the police. "Where's the evidence?" "Lily, you're fabricating evidence." Marcus's eyes blazed with fury. My former classmate, officer, stepped forward, displayed his badge, and presented a document. "Mr. Vance, we have received a formal complaint and have preliminarily verified suspicious financial transactions between your company and an offshore shell company, indicating suspected corporate embezzlement. Furthermore, regarding Mr. Tom's car accident case, we have discovered new leads and require your presence to assist with the investigation. This is a subpoena." He turned to a pale-faced Anna. "Ms. Anna, regarding your gestational age and your relationship with Mr. Vance while your former husband, Mr. Tom, was alive, we also request that you come with us to assist with the investigation." The moment Marcus was handcuffed, he fixed his gaze on me, his eyes filled with unbelievable madness and venom. "Lily, you'll regret this." I walked up to him, close enough for only us two to hear. "Regret? My biggest regret was ever loving a heartless beast like you. Marcus, when you meet my brother, remember to confess to him." The police led away a struggling and roaring Marcus and a nearly unconscious Anna. The room full of guests was gaping in shock, whispers erupting like a tidal wave. I didn't spare them another glance, turning and walking towards the door. The sunlight was blinding, but for the first time, I felt it could reach the depths of my heart. Later, Marcus was completely ruined by the evidence of corporate embezzlement and his involvement in Tom's car accident. After her child was born, Anna underwent a paternity test, which confirmed he was Marcus's biological child. This only served as further undeniable proof of their betrayal of Tom. She took the child and what little money she had left, disappearing from public view. I reclaimed everything that rightfully belonged to me, including the sun-drenched apartment. I sold it, along with the portion of wealth Marcus was forced to relinquish, and established a foundation in Tom's name to help entrepreneurs who had suffered commercial fraud and betrayal. 6 months later, I sat by the window of my new studio, overlooking the flourishing city skyline. It wasn't large, but every design choice was my own, and sunlight streamed unobstructed throughout the entire space. Under my hand was a nearly finished drawing, with fluid lines and vibrant colors, completely different from my past style. I no longer painted romantic and ethereal fantasies, but instead depicted resilient plants, the light of dawn, and the tranquil sea after a storm. My cell phone vibrated on the table with a news notification. The verdict for Marcus's case was announced yesterday. Large-scale corporate embezzlement, coupled with further financial fraud discovered during the investigation, ultimately earned him a lengthy prison sentence. Regarding the unresolved questions surrounding my brother's car accident, while there was insufficient evidence for a direct conviction, public and moral condemnation had already nailed him to the pillar of public shame, along with his incarcerated figure. Anna, with what little money she had left, had long since disappeared without a trace. No one cared about her whereabouts. I looked at the headline, my heart calm and undisturbed. They were firmly in the past. The doorbell chimed softly. I got up to open the door. It was a delivery person with a thick envelope, unfolded. It was the first project report for the Tom. As I read the brief personal accounts of entrepreneurs who, having received help, were able to continue their journeys, a faint smile touched my lips. This was where that money, and my brother's name, truly belonged. I picked up my brush and signed my name in the corner of the nearly finished painting, just Lily, without any prefix. I had once almost become Mrs. Vance, and had carried the identity of Tom's sister. But now, I was simply myself. In the evening, I jogged along the riverfront, the wind in my hair carrying a sense of freedom, passing the old oak tree in our backyard, the tree where we carved our initials as children, now even more lush and flourishing. I paused and gently touched the healed yet still distinct carvings. "Tom, I did it," I whispered in my heart. There was no reply, only the rustling leaves, gentle as a sigh of approval. Turning, I continued to run, my steps steady, my purpose clear. The setting sun cast my shadow long before me, a solid declaration, standing tall alongside the world. My pain had become armor, and the past, merely a prelude. My new beginning, at this moment, had truly just begun. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any thoughts about this story, feel free to share them in the comments section. Here is Roses and Love, sharing stories about marriage and women every day. See you tomorrow.